When the German Panzers rolled across the border in September 1939, the world expected a swift massacre. But hidden in the forests and fields of Poland was a gritty, determined armored force that punched well above its weight. From the tiny ambush-ready TKS tankettes to the advanced 7T that could actually outgun early German armor, the Polish defense was fierce and often underestimated. Let's explore these steel machines that stood against the Blitzkrieg, starting with the smallest yet most numerous defenders. We begin with the backbone of the Polish armored forces, the TK3 tankette. Based on a British Carden Loyd design, this tiny two-man vehicle was intended for reconnaissance rather than direct combat. It was lightly armored with steel plates just thick enough to stop rifle fire and armed with a single Hotchkiss machine gun. Despite its lack of a rotating turret and vulnerability to heavy weapons, the TK3 was fast and low to the ground, making it difficult to spot, though its inability to fight other tanks was a severe handicap in the opening days of the war. Moving to an upgrade of that design, we find the TKF tankette. Visually almost identical to the TK3, this variant was an attempt to solve the mechanical issues of its predecessor by installing a more powerful Fiat 122 engine and a new suspension system. While it retained the single machine gun and thin armor, the TKF was crucial for testing new automotive technologies, and a handful of these upgraded variants saw desperate combat alongside their older siblings in the motorized cavalry brigades. Next is the definitive Polish tankette, the TKS. This was a modernized redesign of the TK3, featuring a more comfortable superstructure for the crew and thicker frontal armor capable of resisting heavy machine gun fire. It served as the primary mobile scouting unit for the Polish army, relying on its small size to ambush infantry columns. However, like the TK3, its standard machine gun armament meant it was largely helpless against German armor, forcing crews to rely on stealth and speed to survive. But not all tankettes were helpless, as proven by the TKS, with 20mm autocannon. This was the ace maker of the campaign, an upgraded TKS rearmed with a potent NKM WZ-38 FK autocannon capable of shredding German Panzer I's and IIs. It transformed the humble Scout into a dangerous tank destroyer, famously used by Edmund Orlik to destroy superior German tanks in ambush. Tragically, only about 24 of these effective variants were completed before the invasion, leaving historians to wonder how much damage a full fleet could have inflicted. Closing out the tankette family is the experimental TKD self-propelled gun. This unique vehicle took the chassis of a TK3 and mounted a 47mm infantry gun behind an armored shield, creating a mobile artillery piece. Only a handful were built for testing, but they were pressed into service in 1939, offering valuable fire support during the defense of Warsaw. While it lacked overhead protection, the TKD demonstrated Polish ingenuity in trying to maximize the firepower of their small chassis. Transitioning from tankettes to true tanks, we must acknowledge the Vickers 6-ton. Poland purchased these British tanks in the early 1930s, and they served as the technological parent for future Polish designs. Armed with a 47mm gun in the Type B variant, the Vickers was a modern design for its time. But by 1939, its riveted armor plate was considered obsolete. Nevertheless, these remaining tanks were thrown into the fight, suffering heavy losses but validating the design concepts that Poland would soon perfect. Those concepts gave birth to the 7TP twin turret. This was the initial production version of Poland's indigenous development of the Vickers, featuring two separate machine gun turrets mounted side by side. The idea was to allow the tank to engage infantry targets on both sides of a trench simultaneously. While innovative in theory, the dual turret layout was cumbersome and lacked anti-tank capability, leading the military to convert many of them to the single turret standard as the threat of German armor grew. This leads us to the pride of the Polish Armored Corps, the 7TP single turret. Armed with a superb Bofors 37mm anti-tank gun and equipped with the groundbreaking Gundlach periscope, a design later copied by the Allies, this tank was superior to the German Panzer I. It utilized a diesel engine which was safer than the gasoline engines of its rivals, and its gun could penetrate any German tank of 1939. Had there been more than roughly 130 of them available, the 7TP could have significantly altered local tactical engagements. Looking toward what could have been, we have the 9TP. This was a prototype intended to replace the 7TP, featuring a lower profile and significantly thicker welded armor to withstand modern anti-tank weaponry. It utilized a more powerful diesel engine to maintain speed, despite the added weight. Although prototypes were in testing stages when the war broke out, the 9TP never entered mass production, representing a lost generation of Polish armor that might have rivaled the mid-war designs of other nations. Supporting these heavy hitters was the C-7P artillery tractor. Built on the chassis of the 7TP tank, this unarmed giant was designed to tow heavy artillery pieces and recover damaged tanks from the battlefield. It proved to be a robust and reliable workhorse, often operating under fire to save valuable equipment. Though not a combat vehicle at the key, the C-7P was vital to the logistics of the mechanized brigades, ensuring that heavy guns reached the front lines. While domestic production ramped up, Poland still relied on older imports, starting with the Renault FT-17. A legend of World War I, this two-man tank was hopelessly obsolete by 1939, with a slow top speed and armor that could be penetrated by modern heavy machine guns. Despite its age, over 100 were still in service, mostly used as mobile pillboxes or for training. In a testament to the desperation of the campaign, some were even used in the defense of the Brest fortress, fighting a war 2 decades past their prime. A much more modern French import was the Renault R-35. Poland purchased a battalion of these well-armored light tanks just before the war, hoping to bolster their ranks. While the R-35 had thick casting that made it tough to destroy, it was plagued by a weak engine and an outdated short-barreled gun designed for infantry support rather than tank combat. Most of these units were sent to the Romanian bridgehead and eventually crossed the border to avoid capture, seeing very little direct combat in defense of Poland. Alongside the R-35, Poland also acquired a few Hotchkiss H-35 tanks for testing. Similar in concept to the Renault, the Hotchkiss was a cavalry tank designed for slightly higher speeds, but suffered from the same one-man turret limitations that exhausted the commander. Only a few were present in Poland during the invasion, serving in ad hoc units. Their impact was negligible, serving mostly as a lesson to Polish engineers that French designs were not the savior they had hoped for. Digging deep into the reserves, we find the Peugeot 1918 armored car. These ancient vehicles from the First World War were essentially museum pieces, armed with a single machine gun and protected by thin steel sheets. A few were reportedly pulled from storage and used by police or militia units in the chaos of the invasion. They offered virtually no protection against modern weapons, symbolizing the sheer lack of equipment available to equip the reserve mobilization. Finally, in this category, we have the Tatra T-18 Drazen. These were small armored rail vehicles used to patrol tracks and scout ahead of full armored trains. Armed with machine guns and capable of high speeds on rails, they were essential for protecting the rail network, which was the lifeline of Polish logistics. While they couldn't operate off-road, their ability to quickly deploy firepower along railway lines made them a nuisance to German sabotage units. Moving to the wheeled reconnaissance units, we have the WZ-34 armored car. This was the standard armored car of the Polish army, built on a civilian truck chassis with a peculiar narrow rear track width that made it unstable off-road. Armed with either a machine gun or a short 37mm gun, it was fast on roads but struggled in the muddy Polish autumn. Despite its mechanical fragility, the WZ-34 fought bravely in cavalry brigades, often acting as the eyes and ears for the army until destroyed. Its heavier cousin was the WAZ-29 Ursus. This was a large, clumsy vehicle armed with both a 37mm gun and multiple machine guns, including one mounted in the rear of the turret for anti-aircraft defense. It was slow and had a high silhouette, making it an easy target, but its heavy armament allowed it to suppress infantry effectively. Only a handful were built, and they fought fiercely in the rearguard actions, using their firepower to cover retreating infantry. Now we look at the future that was cut short, starting with the 4TP PZNG 140. This was a modern light tank prototype designed to replace the aging tankettes, featuring a rotating turret and a 20mm autocannon. It offered the firepower of the upgraded TKS with the flexibility of a true tank, utilizing a torsion bar suspension for a smooth ride. It was a promising design that completed testing just before the war, but production lines were never established before the invasion halted all progress. Even more ambitious was the 10TP. This was a cruiser tank prototype that utilized the American Christie suspension system, allowing it to drive on tracks or on road wheels with the tracks removed. It was fast, mobile, and intended to lead deep penetration maneuvers, similar to the Soviet BT series. The 10TP proved that Polish engineers were on the cutting edge of tank design, but only one functional prototype existed, and its potential was never realized in combat. We conclude with the PZNG 130, an amphibious tank prototype. Recognizing Poland's many rivers and marshes, engineers designed this vehicle to swim across water obstacles using a propeller and rudder system. It was based on the components of the 4TP, sharing its reliability and agility. Like so many other advanced Polish projects, the PZNG 130 was a victim of timing. remaining a fascinating what-if in the history of armored warfare. From the desperate bravery of tankette crews to the advanced engineering of the 7TP, Poland's armored forces in 1939 were a mix of obsolescence and brilliance. They fought a losing battle against overwhelming odds, but extracted a heavy price for every inch of ground.